Ever feel like marketing advice is stuck on repeat? Like, obsess over your most loyal customers, they tell you. Well, get ready for a curveball, because today's deep dive challenges that very idea.
We're cracking open Byron Sharp's How Brands Grow and taking a magnifying glass to those less frequent buyers, the ones you rarely think about. Could they hold the real secret to unlocking your brand's growth?
We're going to find out.
Yeah.
So buckle up, because Chapter 4 dives headfirst into this idea of buying frequency. And Sharp kicks things off with a doozy Coca-Cola.
You'd think the average Coke drinker must be practically swimming in the stuff, right?
Right, guzzling it down. But hold on, because data from Kantar tells a different story. The typical Coca-Cola buyer in the UK, are you ready for this? Only buys it around 12 times a year.
Wait, seriously, that's like once a month?
Once a month. Not exactly a hardcore soda fiend, right? And here's the kicker. It's not just a Coke thing.
Oh no. Don't tell me Pepsi fans are just as, well, moderate in their cola consumption.
You got it. The average Pepsi buyer, 9 purchases a year. It's a pattern. And guess what? It goes way beyond sugary drinks. Hold on, you're seeing that across the board?
Sharp's highlighting that this buying pattern pops up everywhere. For almost any brand you can think of, the majority of their customers are actually light buyers.
Wow. So it's us casual sippers who are fueling these massive companies. Wild. It's hard to believe that my once-in-a-while purchase really makes a dent.
That's exactly why light buyers fly under the radar. Individually, yeah, they might not seem like much, but here's the catch. Collectively, they're a force to be reckoned with.
Okay, so like the power of the masses.
The sleeping giant of market growth. They might only buy a product a few times a year, but multiply that by millions and millions of customers, and suddenly...
Suddenly, you're talking real money.
Exactly. We often focus on those diehards, but the real game changer might be those infrequent buyers.
That's a head spinner. But hold on. If most of a brand's customers are these light buyers, what does that do to the whole 80-20 rule we always hear about?
Ah, the Pareto principle. You're on to something. It's ingrained in marketing, but Sharp would say.
That's bogus.
Not bogus, but maybe. Misapplied. He'd argue it's more like a 50-20 split in many categories.
Okay, so the top 20% are still important.
Crucial. But those other 80%, can't forget about them. Focusing only on the heavy hitters, you miss out on a huge GE growth opportunity.
Interesting. So the Pareto principle isn't wrong, just not the whole story.
Exactly. Sharp points out that time, the time period you're looking at, skews the data. Short-term snapshots can be misleading.
Hold up, what do you mean by that? How does time play into this?
Okay, imagine this. You're looking at buying behavior over just a week or a month. What do you see? Everyone looks like a light buyer. Why? Because there's only been a tiny window to make a purchase.
Ah, I see.
But stretch that time frame out to a year. Now your heavy buyers emerge, racking up those purchases, while others remain occasional shoppers.
So those heavy hitters might not be as dominant as they seem if we're only looking at short-term data.
Exactly. It's like calling someone a marathon champ based on a single sprint.
Love that analogy. And this brings us to another curveball from Shark. Buyer moderation.
Buyer moderation, indeed. It throws a wrench into a lot of traditional marketing thinking, that's for sure.
Okay, I'm all ears. Lay it on me. What is buyer moderation? Buyer moderation. It's like telling those loyalty program obsessed marketers to maybe, I don't know.
Pump the brakes a little.
Yeah, exactly. Because are you telling me those points and miles we're always told to crave, maybe they're not the be-all and end-all?
It's not that they're totally useless, but Sharp points out, for all the hype, there's not a ton of proof they actually work the way we think they do.
Like a marketing myth.
Well, maybe not a myth, but research suggests they're better at encouraging existing behavior than actually shifting market share.
Interesting.
Think about it. You're already a diehard fan of, say, a coffee shop.
Okay, picture it.
Their loyalty program. It might make you feel appreciated, which is nice, but is it really changing how much coffee you drink?
Probably not if I'm already hopped up on caffeine.
Exactly. It's more about shuffling sales around within their existing customer base, not so much about attracting new customers.
Makes sense. So if chasing after the heavy buyers and showering them with rewards isn't the secret sauce, what is? Are we back to marketing being a guessing game?
Not at all. Sharp's argument is that real brand growth, it often comes from reaching beyond that core group to the light buyers and even non-buyer.
Right, that sleeping giant of potential customers.
Exactly. The ones with room to grow, someone buying your product every week. There's a limit to how much more they can realistically consume, right?
Right.
But someone who rarely buys your product, or never has. Now there's an opportunity.
So it's not just about getting people to buy more, it's getting more people to buy at all.
Bingo. Sharp uses the example of a brand expanding into a new area. All those people who were light buyers because it was inconvenient, suddenly they have easy access and their purchasing goes up.
Plus, you're scooping up all those new customers who weren't buying simply because they couldn't get their hands on your product.
Precisely. Out of sight, out of mind, as they say. If people aren't seeing your brand, they aren't thinking about buying it, no matter how loyal they could be.
So to reach those light buyers, non-buyers, we're talking broad reach marketing, not just whispering to your niche audience.
Right, but it's not just about shouting your message from the rooftops either.
Wait, are we saying mass marketing is back?
Yeah.
I thought hyper-personalized was the name of the game now.
It's not about one or the other. It's recognizing different approaches work for different people. Targeted campaigns might be great for those loyal customers. But to reach the light buyers, the non-buyers...
You need a wider net.
Exactly. Instead of squeezing more out of your existing customers, you're bringing new people into the fold.
But wait, doesn't that contradict this whole buyer moderation thing? If people's buying habits fluctuate naturally, how can you build a strategy around that?
That's the thing about buyer moderation. It's about understanding the nuances. It's not about expecting every light buyer to become a heavy buyer. It's about recognizing that everyone has the potential to increase their buying, even if it's just a little.
So you're not trying to force people into a specific box. You're acknowledging their behavior might change and building a strategy that can roll with those changes.
Exactly. And one of the big takeaways here, the importance of consistent brand presence. Think about it. Even if someone's not actively shopping for your product right this second.
They might be down the road.
Right. Staying top of mind means they'll be more likely to consider your brand when they're ready to buy.
It's like that classic example of the toothpaste aisle. You're standing there, overwhelmed by choices, and you just reach for the one you recognize, the one you've seen a million times.
Exactly. And chances are you're not buying a new tube every week, right?
Definitely not. Trying to stretch that toothpaste budget.
See, you get it. Even with something like toothpaste, where you think people buy this all the time, there's actually a huge range in buying habits.
So even though everyone uses it, those toothpaste brands are competing within a surprisingly sporadic buying cycle.
Exactly. Sharp uses data from Kantar showing that most UK households only buy toothpaste 3 times a year or less, and that highlights why consistent brand presence is so important.
Because if you're not top of mind when that infrequent purchase rolls around,
You've probably lost the sale, someone else grabbed their attention. So what we're seeing here, this whole conversation about light buyers and buyer moderation,
kind of throws a wrench into that laser focus on heavy buyers and loyalty programs, doesn't it?
it does. It's not that those strategies are inherently bad. It's just...
You're missing a huge chunk of the puzzle.
That's a great way to put it. It's like trying to build a house starting with the roof. Sharp's work, it's all about getting us to zoom out and see the full spectrum of our customer base.
From those diehards to the once-in-a-blue-moon buyers.
Yeah.
Because ultimately,
Every single person who buys your product, no matter how often, they all contribute to your success.
so how do we put this into action? Where do we even start?
It's about crafting a marketing strategy that reaches everyone, not just the most obvious targets. Think broad appeal, think memorable messaging, and think consistent presence. Keep that brand on their radar, even when they're not actively shopping.
This has been eye-opening. It really makes you rethink those marketing assumptions we all take for granted.
Right. That's the beauty of a good deep dive. It shakes things up.
It sure does. So, as we wrap up here, what's the one big takeaway you want listeners to walk away with?
Remember the power of the light buyer. They are the unsung heroes of the marketing world, the silent majority that can make or break a brand.
Don't underestimate them. Love that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a wild ride.
Anytime.
And for our listeners, until next time, remember, those light buyers might seem insignificant individually, but together, they hold the key to unlocking incredible growth.